Welcome back to the meeting after the meeting. We are your hosts, David O.
And Eric V.
I hate that.
It messed
I hate
you
it
up
so
just
bad.
a little bit, didn't it? We're going to talk about this for
Every
a while,
time,
too.
dude.
Like, you're just so uncomfortable about it, aren't you? Like,
the timing. I don't like it.
You know
I don't
what's
like
funny?
missing you, Eric.
Do you know what's funny, though, David? Is when you hear this, the recording, it sounds fucking fine. And it just makes it seem like you're the crazy person for not hearing me.
Okay, technological delay. Anyway, we are joined today by our very good friend, Martin. How are you doing today, Martin?
Hey, doing great. Happy to be here.
Good, man. Where are you from?
I am from Central Maryland. I'm currently living in a recovery house in Windsor Mill.
Cool.
Yeah, but you own the recovery house.
I do actually.
Hey, humble.
Well, there you go.
That's humility,
to think of it
right?
like I'm someone who I'm practicing what I preach for sure. You know,
There you go.
being a part of the program.
I hear you. So when were you first introduced to recovery?
So, first introduced through the Massey unit out in Cumberland, which is a rehab center, which I was located there through the psych ward that I was in back in 2013, and got connected with the rooms basically through. Was introduced to the 12 steps through the recovery center, through rehab.
Nice. All right. And how long have you been clean?
So I've got 6 years and some change now.
Nice. All right. Well, congratulations. Today's meeting after the meeting is on a topic, and I'll let you intro the topic for us, Martin. What are we talking about today?
So today we are going to be talking about step 4.
Ooh.
Which we
made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves.
Absolutely. All right, buddy. Give us your lead.
Okay. So I guess, part of the excitement that I have for talking about the 4th step today, I would like to do my part in sort of taking away some of the stigma and some of the anxiety that most of us feel around step 4. And I think in a lot of ways in step 4, it's like been made out to be sort of like this looming, daunting character, with this demeanor that out it's the 4th step, and it's almost like it's the program's Sphinx riddle of judgment, right? From the never-ending story, you get to the 3 gates, and the hero's going to die there, and you just kind of have to face it with courage and willingness and get through it. So, I guess part of what I wanted to do, I don't know if we're reading the step later, but part of what I wanted to do is just kind of go through the practical application of step 4, which
Cool.
I'm all about the actual actions and practical application. And to me, that means basically running over my experience, but also what step 4 is for the program of Narcotics Anonymous, which is what I'm working right now. Sort of talk about what you face when you go through it with the step working guide. My first time through the steps, I actually worked through the steps with a sponsor in AA, and what was written in my 4th step the first time was not the same as the 2nd step, and I think that's sort of the beauty of the way that we work the 12-step program, is that you grow and change, and therefore you don't do it just once and you're one and done. And the literature actually talks about steps 4 through 9 sort of being this repeatable process within the process. And it's like it's where we actually strip away the layers of the onion, right? It's the way that we actually get to these different faces of the ego, to address them and to peel them away. And I think something that's really important to mention too about this step is that it's dependent on the gift of sponsorship, right? We are we are dependent to be able to go through the fourth, throughout 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 with a sponsor. Not that you don't from the first 3 steps, but it's very important to go through the 4th step with somebody that you trust. And I think, there are these things that you'll share in a group, right? There's these things that you'll open up to with people that you're close to. But I really believe in sponsorship. I really believe it's so important to have at least that one person that you're willing to share everything with. And that actually might end up being more than one person, right? But this person are people that you are able to get completely naked with, right? To be at that level, not naked, but you know what I mean, emotionally vulnerable. And be
Are
able
you getting
to
naked
share
with
this
Herb?
with.
what
I'm
you do?
actually naked. I'm naked right now and cross-legged.
Oh, God bless you, sir.
No, so I mean, the step at its core, what are we really doing? I mean, we're basically taking inventory of ourselves. Right? We are like people make the example of like a business. The way that a business will go through and they'll inventory what's on the shelves. They'll take stock of what's there, what can be sold, what can't. And part of this is to be aware of not just our bad traits, because I think that was a big part of my fear with this initially was, like it says in the It Works How and Why, it reminds us this is a turning point in our journey, examining ourselves so thoroughly, yet we don't know ourselves very well yet, and we may not be sure we want to, right? The fear of getting to know myself and what am I going to find out. For me personally, too, there was a fear of, was I bad enough, right? If I share this with my sponsor, is he going to think that I was bad enough? And one of the things that I think is really funny, too, is as I was writing on the 4th step the first time, I started to write the story that I had told people to look tough, right? And I had told this story for so long
Martin,
that it
you
just
are not
became
tough.
ingrained in me. I'm not tough, man. I'm sensitive,
No.
But the thing is, I realized upon writing it in my 4th step that it never even happened. I was hanging on to guilt for something that I had never even actually done. It was just a story that I had been telling for so long. And, so the 4th step gives us this really cool opportunity to take a look at ourselves. And there again, be able to identify and strip away these layers of ego. So searching and fearless. So to be fearless isn't really about waiting until you're not scared, right? Yeah. Being fearless is about being willing to walk through that fear. It's about acting as if you're already past the resistance and being able to just move forward regardless. And that's what courage is too, right? The courageous hero in the story isn't someone that is perfect in every way and already knows he can defeat the dragon. He just goes and carries it out. That's what courage is, and that's what being fearless is in this step, is that we just step forward and we do it anyway. Searching is like, it means, to question deeply. And I think you've got to allow like the mental space to absorb that data that's collected through this inventory. So the literature, it also describes the 4th step as this is like the first step towards learning to love ourselves. And I think that's the other thing that's missed a lot with this expectation and this build up to step 4 as if it's, something overwhelming. Yet the literature describes it as, the first step towards learning to love ourselves. Well, part of that is being able to understand ourselves and take a look at what happened. Yeah. And part of the inventory that we do includes our assets, and I think that was even part that made me nervous too, is, to have to recognize that there are good parts about me as well. And I think that might make people uncomfortable too, to have to look at that stuff. The other thing I think is probably also that a lot of the reason that there's fear that's based around the 4th step is it probably comes from a lot of people that haven't actually done a 4th step. Because everybody that I've actually talked to Right? Would you agree with that? I mean, I think there's a lot of people that talk a lot of shit, but that they've never actually done a fourth step.
6 is worse. If you're going in like the hierarchy of bad
Yep.
steps, 6 is the step people should be afraid of, not 4.
Yes, should be.
Should be. I'm talking about like if you are
And you know-
scared. It's not that bad though. In the end, it's not that bad. But I'm just saying in the hierarchy.
And you know, once you get past 4, 5, 6, and 7 goes so quick.
Yeah.
I
In
agree.
reality, you know. So I guess part of what I wanted to do is just take a look at like what's in the step working guide. So this it starts out, and a lot of it, just like the reading, is trying to describe and give a build up. A lot of what's in, and I'll say this too. So the way that I was told to write on the step work, and the way that I suggest it to my sponsees, is basically we start off with the basic text with a highlighter. And you read it, and you highlight what stands out to you.
Yes.
Then you go to the it works how and why. You read the it works how and why step, with a highlighter, and you highlight it, right, for whatever stands out to you at that time. Then you jump right into the work, and that's it. The first couple of questions in it is really just talking about what might you be afraid of, right? What's holding you back from working this step? Then when we actually get into it, it starts into with resentment. So what is a resentment, right? What's a resentment? I think at its simplest form, a resentment is like when we've gotten angry at someone and we refuse to forgive them for whatever reason, and now we're angry at them all over again, right? And it comes down to like, well, how does this help me? Right? This resentment that it boils my blood every time I think of this person. And here's I'll give you one. So there was this guy who was dating my sister, and and he was a pretty scummy guy, and I never liked him that much. And he actually dumped my sister and started dating the girl that I just broke up with.
Yeah, weird.
And I had to, and she was like my best using connect. So even after I broke up with her, I was still trying to I helped her move all her stuff into her new apartment so I could keep the relationship. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and here this guy is who I despise. And now he's with my ex. And like, who does that, right? I mean, that's weird. You know what I mean? Both
That's
of them have
several
now dated
bro
me.
code violations.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm hurt, and I'm uncomfortable every time I think about this guy. And, so my sponsor told me to pray for him, right? To pray for this guy. And I'm like, cool, got it. God, take this worthless piece of shit's life and please kill anyone who's like him, right? And, my sponsor's like, no. You have to pray for this person and their well-being just like you would do for your own. And I got to tell you, that was really hard at first. And when I started doing it, I didn't mean it at all. Like I did not, like I would say the words, but I didn't mean it at all. And over time, not only did I actually start to mean it, but to this day, I can actually tell you honestly, I do actually, I wish him well. I wish the best for that person, for his well-being, for, because the broken person that he was, and really the broken person that I was, I don't wish that upon anybody anymore. And I think the biggest part of that too is that when I look back on it now, he didn't think anything of me, right?
No.
All of this pain and the resentment was in me. It was the resistance that I held towards these feelings that stayed stuck inside of me. He didn't care. He didn't feel anything towards me.
Yeah.
Right? It was my pain, and that's what got released. It was me that through becoming aware of that resentment and being willing to let it go, I got the relief from that. And it is those resistance to feelings that keep us stuck and that hurt us inside. And there's that saying, like, what you resist will persist.
And one of the best quotes I've heard about resentment is it's like swallowing poison and expecting the other person to die.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So then we get into the feeling section, right? The feeling section, and I love the question in here. I actually highlighted this in my step work. So there's a question that says, how do I identify my feelings?
You son of a bitch. Dude, I'm looking at the book right now. I have a star next to that question because I was going to ask you that question.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what my answer was at the time when I wrote on it.
Okay.
I wrote, this is a quote. I don't think I have a strong grasp on telling one feeling from the next yet. Anger often feels like pleasure. Pleasure often feels like pain. Pain often comes as confusion. So confusion might be the best way for me to identify my individual feelings.
Huh. Interesting.
You know, and I think that kind of sums up how feelings were for me. To come into the program, feelings were very foreign. You know, to even have an idea that feelings are separate from emotions, you know, was so foreign to me. You know, we were always taught as kids that if you're hurt or you have feelings about something, that you keep them to yourself, right? That these are family secrets, as we often call them, and if they get bad enough, you just need to move to another place and need to move to another state to get away from it. So to address feelings, to understand, like this section in the 4th step really helped me to become aware, number one, of how unaware I was of what I was even feeling. And even to today, most of the time, I don't necessarily know how I feel about something while it's going on, while it's happening to me in the moment. You know, sometimes I need that time and space to really focus on what it meant, what, if anything, is the right next action. You know, one of the other things I found out, too, was, like, in my childhood, I was harboring a lot of my mother's feelings, right? I learned to interpret the world as she did, and I was raised by a single mother. And my mom was afraid to live, you know? She was scared to be around other people. She was scared to trust. She was, scared to love. She was afraid to show us affection, you know, most of the time. She was afraid that if we left the house that we would get hurt. And, you know, for a long time, she leaned on her 10-year-old son to figure out how to, like, juggle the credit cards and make ends meet. And that was a lot of fear and pressure for little Marty to handle. And because of that, I built walls of protection, right? I built these walls of ego around, you know, for as a son, I have to carry out these actions. Right. And that's a lot of what we're also breaking down the 4th step too, in a way. It's like, you know, as a, you know, you're a husband right now. You guys are both married. You guys are both as a husband. So that part of your ego, I need to carry out as a husband. I have to go and take the dog out. Right. I have to make sure that I'm taking care of her feelings.
No, let's be honest. I'm a terrible husband. I am just the worst.
Is that your self-assessment, David?
Yes, and my wife is looking at me, nodding in agreement. No, she's not. She's shaking her head. She loves me.
Well, you'll be ready on a deeper level for your next time through the 4 steps.
Let's hope so, for her sake.
Well, and some of that might be useful too, right? Because we need our ego. We need that driving force to get us to get up and go to work in the morning. You know, some of this is not all bad just because we recognize it. And you know that because I go to CDA as well, and I'm sure there's some CDA people that listen to you guys now. One of my favorite sayings from CDA is "Don't talk, don't trust, don't feel." Right. And that's pretty much how I was raised. So, you know, part of this writing and this spiritual breakthrough that I got from the 4th step this last time was like, you know, her self-centered fear is not mine. You know, part of these reactions that were ingrained and built in, that were my reactions, were not even based on my own personal fear of life. And to come to that realization was definitely really freeing. There again, though, like nobody can work your 4th step for you, right? The freedom and the understanding that we get in the step work is all our own. It's our work. and it's our release. It's our journey, and nobody can write that step for you.
Yeah.
Let me think. So the next part is also, in the step working guide here, it says, many of us have discovered as we work the fourth step that our problems didn't begin the first time we took drugs, but long before, when the seeds of our addiction were actually planted. So I guess there's a story that I want to tell with that too. And so it reminds me, and, a lot of people have really great ways of being able to pinpoint when they became an addict, and not just from their first time using, right? But how, when they first learned to lie. So I got a good story. So this, when I was younger, I was in fourth grade, long before the drugs came in, although I think this is like when the DARE program came into my school, and they talked about how great drugs were. And I could definitely remember that, sitting in DARE class, and that, this cop is telling me about how people will literally sell their own family in order to get more. And I was thinking, like, man, it must be amazing. Like, those drugs have to be great. And if you're willing to give up your life and your teeth for that. But so my mom was a teacher at this elementary school that I went to in Florida. And we had moved a lot because I was born in Maryland. We moved down to Florida. And in Florida, they have these open air schools. The hallways are all open. And as they expanded the school, there were these portables in the back, which are really just trailers, right? And so my mom would finish out her school day, and she had to, do stuff in her classroom. All the kids would leave, and I would still stay at the school. I didn't have a lot of friends, and, I had one friend, actually. I literally had one friend. So I spent a lot of time, like, alone. I spent a lot of time, like, creeping around the school. I'd get on the roofs. I'd try to get into different parts of the building. I would sneak into, like, the cafeteria area and creep around. And so I found my way into my teacher's portable one evening. And I think they were having, like, either a PTA meeting or something where, like, all of the teachers were in a meeting, and I knew that I would have time. So I snuck in. I got into class, fourth grade, and my teacher had these little coupons. And the coupons you could use, and you could trade them in so that you wouldn't have to do homework. You could trade them in so you could get a better score on your tests, and you would get them from doing, good in class and raising your hand. Yeah, being a part of it. So it was like a monetary aid. Well, I broke into the classroom, and I got into her desk, and I realized I could take them. And so here I am, right? I'm now lying. I'm keeping all of this to myself. It's a total adrenaline high for breaking in, let alone finding the secret money supply. I remember I did sell them to a couple of the other kids, which was like a power trip, right? And to me, that was a big part of where, like, the seed was planted. And I never got caught. I think that was another part of it for me, was to be able to carry all this out and to not have repercussions, right? To be able to get away with it, quote unquote. Yeah. It was a total rush. And
I can imagine.
So anyway, so there's another thing that, and I had forget. So that was something that I had totally forgotten, right? These are like memories that you forget why you're acting upon what you're acting upon, right? So many years of drug use just sort of ingrain these behaviors in us. We don't necessarily know why we're carrying things out or reacting. Like, when somebody is nice and trustworthy and they're opening up to you, sometimes in early recovery, you look at them like, the hell is wrong with this motherfucker, right? Or like, what are they looking for, for being so honest to me, and, pulling up a lot of this stuff. The next section that we talk about is guilt, shame, fear, and guilt. So what is guilt? Even there, the difference between guilt and shame. So guilt is like, I did something bad, and shame is like, I am bad. Right? One of the things that I wrote about in the guilt section was, feeling guilty about bringing others into using. One of the guys at our house meeting the other day just talked about one of the guys that he went to high school with died this last week as a direct result of using. And the guilt that he's going through currently is because he's the one that introduced him to the drug use in college. And these are part of the things that we have to work through. And fear is a big section. And I touched on a little bit of that too with like my mother's fear of life and how I was dealing with fear. I think there's also like a lot of fear going on in the world right now. And I think it's important to mention that even through difficult times like this, I'm personally making the choice not to act through fear, right? I'm acting through love and through trust of my higher power, right? Knowing, step one, I'm powerless over what may or may not happen on a global level with a pandemic. I can do my part, and I can, in the same way, I can smile at people, right? I can be caring about the people who've lost family members, but I can choose to stay in love and remain positive even through something like this. And that's a big part of coming to understand fear. If you're just acting out in fear all the time and you don't even recognize it, or say, I don't want to attend a meeting because I'm feeling bad right now. Things like that, you start to recognize it's okay to be hurting. It's okay to be, feeling less than, but it doesn't mean to just shut off from life altogether. And then we get to the relationship section. So the relationship section, like most of our literature, ends up being about us, right? And and for me, man, it just really came out about control. The questions like, do we impose our standards on others? And I had to face a lot of control issues that came up, and a lot of my control issues I had the best of intentions behind, but I wanted to have my outcome, right? My will be done in a lot of those instances. And control for me is also a dangerous place to try to live in because, what is pain if not an unexpected outcome, right? Or an unwanted outcome. So, if I'm, I heard this example one time. If somebody hits you in the face, you would be hurt. But you would be hurt more because you were not expecting it, right? Than actually the pain on your face. And a lot of what we go through, somebody like myself who wants to control, we constantly are faced with outcomes that are not what we wanted, and therefore we're constantly put in a place of pain. So there again, looking back at the writing, I also was able to become aware of this and try to, practice my life with a different lens, right? To become aware of the fact that I have control issues also means that I can enter a situation where I may be more prone to try to control it. I might enter the situation going in with more patience and more love, right? To go in and purposely not take the reins and control a situation where I could, in order to just experience something different, to try it on. Maybe it is possible to get through something without being completely in control of it. And also to try to be more in line with God's will, right? And less with my own, and just allow life to take place without that resistance. Looking back too at my writings, the other thing that I realized that I did not expect was also that on a deep level, I didn't feel like I deserved love. And the way that came up was that I constantly felt like I needed to be doing something, right? To have something of value to offer in every situation in order to be loved, right? My romantic relationships, my friendship relationships. If I'm not giving more than you are, then I don't deserve to be loved. And that also translated to how I view God. right? And a lot of that came from my childhood as well, right? Shut up and work harder. Make sure you're doing the chores or you're not valued. You know, if I wasn't giving more to God, how could God love me, right? Mm-hmm. And then we go over the asset section, and that's pretty much that's step 4. You know, you go through, you answer a couple of questions, and you gain a lot of really, really cool insight from it. There is a section about abuse, and I think for a lot of people that are victims of abuse or have been abused or they're abusers, it's important to remember too, like what we're writing about are things that have happened in the past, right? And with all of this inventory, you know, we're meant to look at these things and become aware of what's good and what's bad. Right? All this, the worst of it's behind us, you know, and the feeling of not being bad enough or not being good enough. I think that's the beautiful part about recovery too, is that as we're in recovery, we're not who we used to be, you know? Yeah. And I don't have to ever be who I was again if I don't pick up.
Cool.
All right. Yeah, man. All right. We definitely have some questions for you. I would like to start, Eric.
Okay. Go ahead, David.
Okay. I want to start with a fun one, Martin. Really totally unrelated, because like you and I, like we speculate on this a lot, and I want an on the record answer. So if you and I had used together, who would have been arrested first?
You would have absolutely been arrested first.
Okay.
Yeah. I was way too good at talking my way out of things. I can't count how many times I literally should have been arrested and they let me go. One time, I mean, I got pulled over. I was high. I was drinking a beer while driving, and the cop pulls me over. I take the half-filled beer, drop it under the seat next to me, which is pouring out. I get pulled over, and somehow I get away with a warning.
Did he find the beer?
You know what I mean? There's never even checked for the beer. Never found the beer. I mean, I could tell a bunch of stories like that where, you know, I blocked off Route 32 with driving cones and all kinds of crazy shit. But yeah, definitely you. I wouldn't have been.
Okay. All right. That's fair answer. All right. Go, Eric. What serious question do you have?
Oh, wow. That was your real question?
I agree with that answer.
I agree.
With that answer,
yeah, I agree 100%. You're definitely the person getting arrested, David.
Yep.
I mean,
I'm definitely getting arrested first.
I mean, out of all three of us, you'd be number one.
100%.
Thanks, Eric.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Yes.
That's I'm true. Boosting your ego, right? Like, you know, I'm like building you up, man.
How is that an ego boost?
You're the best.
Okay, I'm the best at getting arrested out of the three of us. That's sweet.
But you wouldn't be arrested by the fashion police. That's for sure.
That's true.
That's for damn sure.
You are the fashion police.
And for the record, and if it was the three of us using together, I'd have taken it for the team. I wouldn't rat you guys out.
My man.
Awesome. Good friend to have.
I'm the fall guy. All right, Eric.
All right.
Ask a serious question.
So let's just start with the easiest one, right? And kind of the one that I think, you know, it even says it in the beginning of the Step Working Guide where you start talking about spiritual principles. What is the spiritual principle from step 4 that you take away from the step and utilize them like the most in your life?
Yeah, that's a question. And I think courage. You know, courage, maybe willingness as well, but the courage to be able to, the courage to change, the courage to be able to move through fear, rather than hang on to the resistance of whatever it is. And I think, you know, to me, resistance, I can feel it these days when I go through a situation and there's this pent-up energy inside of me because I'm not addressing something that needs to be addressed. right? And I'm not talking about just lashing out somebody in anger, because there's lots of ways to be able to have a conversation in a loving way that gets to the core of something much better than reacting with anger does. But that resistance, if it's not addressed, will continue to eat away. And I think it takes real courage to be able to be willing to stand up for what you think is right, and be willing to walk through any situation that scares you. I mean, there's no way that I could have gotten to the point that I'm at in my life now if I was just waiting to not be afraid to do something. And I'm the first to say, like, I've failed more than anybody I know, and I'm willing to, again, to be able to build my life that I want, and this life that's beyond my wildest dreams. Most of it, I just had to figure out. I just had to jump in, ask for advice and move through it. So yeah, I think the fourth step is really, it's big on courage.
Nice. All right. So you answered the question that we were both looking at. How do you identify your individual feelings? Assuming now that you've gone through some growth and some change and come to a better ability to do that, which might be a big assumption for you, buddy. But I want to ask the following question. What feelings do you have the most trouble allowing yourself to feel?
I still have a lot of trouble with, like compliments from other people and feeling self-worth.
Yep.
Part of that I see as an asset too, though, in a way. It's troubling. There's just so many things from active addiction that I see as superpowers now, So I look at the experiences that I went through, like, as addicts, we're fucking tough people, right? Nobody could have done to me what I did to myself, and nobody can stop me, right? We are strong people when we allow ourselves to be, and we've learned a lot. And I think, to me though, I'm bad at taking compliments. I'm getting better at it. But there's this balance between, humility, and this over-exaggerated self-worth. So, I try to be good at accepting compliments and feeling that self-worth and not letting it overtake me. And I've noticed, that part of what I was talking about too with, feeling like I have to do more than I get in return. In a way, it's a defect and it's an asset, right?
Yeah.
Because my default from the way I was raised is that no one will ever do anything for me. I have to do everything for myself. I don't expect anything from any other human being. In fact, the only thing I expect from other people is hurt and disappointment, right? So if somebody does something nice for me, I'm like over the moon excited. I'm probably the person who is. I am more touched by a small gesture from somebody else, and I see that as both an asset and a defect. But that's just part of who I am. There again is the acceptance, from the awareness that we get out of doing the step work.
All right. Back to you, Eric.
What would you classify as your greatest asset?
Ooh, my greatest asset. I just love forgiveness, I've built a large portion of my life around the second chance that I was given and giving people second chances. And that takes a lot of patience and a lot of forgiveness. And I don't mean that in the sense of romantic relationships necessarily. I mean that in the fact that, with friendships and learning how to have friends, and the men that have been brought into my life because of the program, there's been so many times when I've had the opportunity to react the way that I want to react, right? There's always like what you want to say to somebody and then what you actually say to them. Being able to put that time and space and add patience add love, let God's will come in and react through that lens rather than just what'll feel good in the moment. I mean, I've built my life around redemption, and some of those people that I gave the extra time and space to and another chance have become some of the people that I'm closest with and who continue to do amazing things in the program of Narcotics Anonymous in our area. And, none of that is just me, right? All of that.
All right. Well, my next question, you have to choose one or the other. So do you believe that the fourth step helped you deal with yourself better or helped you deal with others better?
And I have to choose just one?
Yeah.
Myself.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? Go into that.
So, I mean, through the step work, in step 4, I write a lot.
Yep.
And, the fourth step, so part of this is our sponsor. Part of this is me.
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely long-winded as well. It took us a year to go over the full step through a lot of different get-togethers. And not that we were getting together every single week or anything like that, but we definitely did a thorough fourth step this time around.
Yeah.
And the person that I was by the time I finished the step was not the same person I was when I first started. It was noticeable in my act. Just like I was saying about those resentments, right? And releasing those resentments that I had, they don't have as much of an effect on those other people as they had on me. And I think the same thing about understanding, part of my motivations, understanding, where I came through on some of these things. Now I can see through a different lens to be able to carry out. Yeah, other people are definitely going to get a different me, but I mean, the biggest person who feels that is going to be me.
Okay. Yeah, for me personally, I would have chosen the other. Like, I think it helped me deal with other people a lot better. Because ultimately, obviously, I think it's a 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. I think it helps everybody.
Definitely.
But for me personally, it really illuminated certainly the way I was treating people, but also,
and you're specifically referring to the sex section, I take it.
Yes, absolutely. Nothing but the sex section. That's it. How people were treating me sexually. No. Everything from my past, feelings, guilt and shame, my morals, my relationships, all abuse. It really helped me understand a lot of those things. And what you touched on, with the resentment you shared, I swear to God, it was Herb channeled through you, because I heard him say those exact same things to me with resentments and abuse. Because we're holding on to shit with this other person, and this other person just genuinely, it's not that they intentionally don't give a shit, but it's not even on their radar. And so I'm making a big deal about this thing when this person might not even know what the fuck I'm talking about. So it really let me understand how other people work as well. So I was able to negotiate a lot of my past situations with all of those, with resentment, guilt and shame, feelings and abuse, all of those things helped me understand where those people were at. And it bettered my ability to move forward with people, because I believe like 6 and 7 were far more about me. That was almost 100%. Like, some of it's about other people, but four help me negotiate with the world and with people a lot better. What you got, Eric?
I'm just thinking about what you just said. I think, just personally, before I go into that, I think 10 is for everyone else and 4 is for yourself. Just personally.
Yeah, like
I think like 4 through 9 is for you, 10 is for everyone else. And I know 9 a lot of people are going to say that's for other people, but I think a lot of that's for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Because in order to get to the point where you become the person you are, you have to work on yourself, which is 4 through 9. And then 10 is for making sure you're not, the person you were.
Yeah, like a specific example for like why I think it helped me deal with others better is when it asks the question, like, what institutions do I resent? Like, coming into recovery, and especially like when I worked my 4th step, I'm sure Martin could relate to this, is I had a lot of resentments over a shit ton of institutions. Like what? Law enforcement, government, and I'm a very angry person over shit from the past, things I see in the world, all sorts of stuff. So I was really, and yes, it comes back to me for sure. How am I going to deal with those things? But it's ultimately how I'm dealing with those others better. Like I've developed a very, I don't know, respectful relationship with law enforcement since coming into recovery. Like, but after being arrested so many times and seeing the inner workings of jails and all this shit, like I had resentments against it, and like it made me angry. Mm-hmm. So by working with that, now I actually come to have a great deal of respect for law enforcement, and I can be very nice to them. I don't call them pigs or give them the fucking finger when I'm going down the road anymore. So I think that one specifically, like that's an example of how it helped me deal with others better.
Okay.
Yeah, so, my section on resentments towards politics and the fractional reserve bankings was really ridiculously long too. So that's why I won't get into that.
Did you say the fractional reserve bankings?
Yes. Yeah. Haven't let go of all those resentments yet either.
No. Yeah. Ooh, what resentment? What's the biggest resentment you're still clinging to? I'm sorry.
No.
What, did I just steal your question, Eric?
Well, no, actually, it's close. Mine's a little bit different, so you can go to the clinging to.
Yeah. What resentment do you like? Are you really holding on to? And you're like, I don't want to get rid of this one yet. I want an answer from all three of us.
Well, here's the truth though. Like, resentments don't necessarily just go away, right?
Yeah.
So my experience with it, for all of my resentments, if you just want me to go on a tirade, I'll go on a tirade. But with all of my resentments, what happens is that I work for them to be removed.
Uh-huh.
Right? They're removed. Yeah. They're removed from me. You know, another big one that I have is towards my grandmother, who is a really evil person who did a lot to screw over our family. For most of the time, I'm totally at peace with it, and I'm fine. And then something will happen. Like, for example, somebody will say, well, you know, grandparents, they're the best. Well, I never had a relationship with any of my grandparents. They were all pretty shitty, especially this grandmother. So for me, that ends up, it kind of boils under my, under the skin, and it's, that resentment comes back. And then I just, I'm able to work through it again and let it go again. So, and it gets easier to manage the more that I'm able to talk about it, right? To work through it with the people that I'm close to in my network, to share that shit with my sponsor, to be able to find healthy ways to deal with that and to be able to release it comes quicker, a lot easier. That doesn't mean that resentments are gone, certainly not overnight. But yeah, I have a big problem with the way that our government creates money from debt out of nowhere and how it keeps all of us enslaved. I don't think that we're going to be able to fix our system the way that it's currently designed. I think we're done with capitalism. I think we're done with socialism. I think we need an entirely new system altogether to live on this planet where, you know, we're ready for that. We needed these systems to get us to where we're at, but we don't need them anymore. And I strongly have real views against that and the way that our two-party system, you know, works together to enslave the people and prop up the corporations. But you know, I'm powerless over most of that, and you know, for me to watch politics on a daily basis is not part of my reality anymore because it doesn't do anything but upset me.
Yep.
So you know, that's part of the way that I'm able to move on through those resentments and enjoy my life is not to spend my time solely focused on things that I can't be a part of, because I am involved on a local level. I'm involved in, you know, working through the system that is in place to be able to make good out of it anyway. I'm involved with, you know, different groups that are trying to direct some of this addiction funding into the right ways. We're helping to write the laws so that the lawmakers will pass something that's actually beneficial to the people. So I do what I can, but I don't really just live in the problem anymore. I try to live in the solution. The resentments can take continual releasing when it comes to, you know, the bigger ones.
I'm going to say two things real quick. That was an amazing answer, but my second statement is I really just wanted a really sick answer, like fucking Herb. Like I have such a resentment against that bastard, and I don't want to let it go. I wanted something sick, and you didn't give it to me. You gave me all recovery, and I appreciate it. But I'm also like, fuck you, Martin, for being spiritual.
Okay.
Do you have a sick answer, Eric? A sick resentment that you're just like, nope, I don't want to get rid of that one. I'm not even working on it. I do.
I know you probably do. Let me think about this. I mean, I don't know.
That hurts.
I think there's like two people that I can think of where they're just people in my life that were shitty, and I don't wish them well. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I wish them no goodwill. And yeah. If they succeed, that's great. If they don't succeed, that's better. But to be honest, it's the way I look at it is I identify people that might present issues like those two people, and I avoid that situation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because they weren't good people. So, yeah. You know, why? I'm not going to forgive them. There's no reason to forgive them. I never want to speak to them again. So, and like, to be honest, I'll be real here. There's a lot of people that, like, it's totally fine never to fucking speak to them again. There's nothing good that's going to come from, like, making an amends to a resentment that, like, you don't really need to make an amends for. It's like, oh, this person fucked you over, like, multiple thousands of dollars for work that you did, and they never paid you. Like, yeah, you have a right to be angry about that. Like, I'm 100%. I'm angry about it. I've moved past it. I've improved my life, and I don't deal with people like that anymore. Like, I won't say like this, you know, I won't say like the, you know, like I'm going to love them, because I don't believe in loving everyone either. There's a lot of people I don't fucking like, and I don't love them, and I'm not going to love them. Like, love to me is a more meaningful word than sometimes what we throw it around to be. And like, I only love people. Like, I'm not going to say I love someone if I don't mean it. And we didn't throw that word around lightly. Like, we didn't use that word in my house, personally. Like, that's just something, it's weird to say to my parents that I love them. Like, that's fucking weird. The only person besides my wife I say I love is my grandmother. That's it.
You told me. You've said it to me. To be clear.
I have, but again, it's not a word I use lightly.
But you won't again. You've never
But
going
We don't
to
need,
now.
we don't need to quantify it. Let's just leave it.
But it's not a word I use lightly, though. So that's what I'm saying.
Well,
That's what I'm
when it-
saying.
I know.
Where it comes to
I know it isn't, Eric.
Yeah.
Where it comes to the fourth step, though, I think all of what you're saying is completely in line with the fourth step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there's a big misconception. Totally. One of my counselors actually talked to me about this because, again, like coming in with my grandmother being an evil person, I haven't talked to her since. And the way that one of my counselors helped me realize that I shouldn't is because, especially when you come from this idea that family, family above all else, and no matter what, and then you have a family member who's taking advantage of you and literally is narcissistic to the point where they gain their self-worth by hurting you. That's not a healthy relationship to be a part of.
Yep.
Right? So what my counselor had to tell me was that it doesn't matter if they're a family member or not. It doesn't matter if it's your own mother or father or not. If they're not treating you the way that anyone should treat you, then you should not be a part of their life and you should not be close to them or talk to them or have anything to do with them. That was an eye-opener for me. I was like, what? Like, wait, you can just not be a part of a family member's life when they're not healthy? Not just that, you should cut out everybody in your life that's hurting you or taking advantage of you. So I completely agree with what you're saying. To me, the resentment side of it is just the part that's hurting me. And you said that too, Eric. You said that they shouldn't be hurting you anymore, whether they go on and succeed in their life or not. You could care less. But the part of it that's hurting you is no longer there. And I think we're basically saying the same thing with that.
Exactly.
Yes. And for my answer, and right along with you, Martin, it's my dad. Like I don't have any fucking interaction with him. And like Eric, I don't wish him well. He was a piece of shit human being. I think he's probably still a piece of shit human. And like through my 8 and 9, like talking with my sponsor, he was like, there is no reason for you to even go down that road. He was like, if you want to, I will for sure be with you every step of the way. But if you don't want to, I respect that, and that's fine. But you're right. I don't let it poison me on a daily basis. But every once in a while, it like on Father's Day, it pops up, and I'm like, fuck Father's Day.
Yep, gotta let it go again. And then sometimes by saying, well, I like to tell my sponsees right when they're new, it's okay to be in fuck you mode, right? I'm having a bad day. Fuck you, I'm not talking to you. It's Father's Day. Fuck you, Dad, right? But it's not okay to get the fuck it, right? Because if we get the fuck it, then all bets are off, and then it's really dangerous. But I think that's great that you guys bring up that point that just because you're writing on the fourth step and you're addressing people that have wronged you and that you've wronged, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're even going to be on the list for down the line. I think that is important to say to people. I didn't even think about that. That's awesome that you bring up that point, because that could be a point of fear for people as well. Like, oh shit, what if I actually have to address this by writing about it? I'd just rather not write. Well, forget that. You put them on there. It doesn't necessarily mean you owe them anything.
Well,
exactly.
That's an important thing to remember, is because people do bring this up sometimes where, especially with abuse, there are times where you are just a victim. And like, if a sponsor is pushing you to find your part in it, like, I'll be real, fuck that. Like sometimes you are just hurt and like you did not have like a part in the reason why you deserve to be hurt. Because I've had people come up to me and talk to me about that, and it's like, dude, no, that's fucked up. Like, there are times where you are simply a victim, and there is no what's my part. It's just like it's like fuck, Like I mean, I don't know.
Right along that line, like I still remember like the last interaction I had with my father was when I was 21. We had like this whole family, basically, fucking. I don't even know what you call it.
Reunion?
No, a family meeting where it just devolved into just the worst shit ever. Where it was kind of like an intervention for the family. Yeah, it was a family clusterfuck. That's exactly what it was. And the very last thing I ever asked him, I was like, why did you beat me and my, like, it was only me and one of my sisters that he would just beat the shit out of all growing up. And like, I was looking him dead in the eye and I was like, well, why did you do this to us? And like, he like looked away for about a half second, shrugged, looked right back at me, and he was like, because I could. And that was the last thing my dad ever said to me. And I was like, holy fuck. And thank God, like, I have the sponsor I have. He was like, you have no part in that. None. You were a kid. He was an adult. That has nothing to do with you at all. He is an abuser. You're an abusee. You're the victim. There's no part to play in that. There's no amends to make. Your resentment is completely valid. He's like, you need to learn how to heal from it and let it be in the past. But don't think that you need to try and reconcile some sort of relationship, just like you said, Martin, just because they're family. Because sometimes family is just a fucking word.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. And that's a big part of what I get out of CDA too. And I'm not working the steps in CDA yet, so I'm not commenting on that. But I think there's so much that can be gained. I'm saying CDA. I mean
CODA.
No, adult children of alcoholics.
I was
okay.
when you were saying CDA, I was like Chemical Dependency Anonymous.
Yeah, I was like, chemical dependence?
No.
Dude, you're really getting
I don't know where that.
I'm like, you drink coffee, you son of a bitch.
Too many acronyms.
I hear you. All right, Eric, back to you.
It's that time, David.
It's that time?
Yep.
Damn, I had one really, really good question.
It's that time.
It's that time. Okay. All right. Well, it's with a heavy heart and me ignoring my final really great question, everybody. But it's that time to go to the Twitter.
All right, gents. This is from our friend Alan S. Who we spoke to.
From Scotland?
Yes.
Fantastic.
And it kind of works with the step. It's a topic. Amends.
Okay.
So, Martin, you'll go first on the topic of amends, then David, and then myself.
All right. What we're just talking about amends?
Yeah, just talk about amends
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So so making amends is not saying you're sorry, which is pretty great. And it's free. I have a guy still that I have not made amends to yet. I'm so looking forward to it. And this to me shows how bizarre and how much I've changed and how unexpected recovery can be. I borrowed $5,000 from this guy, and he was my best friend at the time. He no longer talks to me. He basically felt that once I came out and was honest about the fact that I had a problem, he basically politely told me he did not want to be my friend anymore because he has kids. And even though I would never have to give him that money back, he's on my amends list, and I cannot wait to present him with $5,000 to put towards his kids' college funds or whatever, because I've been putting away money here and there, and I'll finally be able to give him money. And that's something that it's for him, right? But it's really for me. And a lot of the amends that are tough for me that I really am looking forward to addressing this time around is finding ways. I used to cause a lot of I lived in blackouts for a long time, so I caused a lot of problems that I don't remember. And they include, stealing thousands of golf balls from a driving range that is no longer there. It's a shopping plaza now. And I would, drive around town spreading golf balls across roads, breaking windows, hitting cars. So finding ways to be able to, make amends for some of the sillier shit that I did and stuff that I can't remember too is going to be interesting.
For the record, Martin, you hucking golf balls at cars and just like dropping a bucket of them in an intersection is probably my favorite part of your entire story, because it just cracks me up inside. I'm like, I would have co-signed that idea all day, every day. And that's why God kept us separate while we were using.
That's right.
Because it would have been mayhem. All right, amends. Amends. I kind of want to talk about how to mentally prepare for amends for anybody out there who is approaching the process or is even just in the conceptualization process of it. Like, how am I going to talk to this person? How am I going to rectify this behavior? How am I going to pay this back? How am I going to do that back? And this is something that Herb, me and Martin's mutual sponsor, taught me. He was like, amends are supposed to hurt a little bit, period. Like, you hurt that person, so by karmic law, quote unquote, you have it coming back towards you. And it's not supposed to necessarily just be a painless process where you just say, oh, this is what this is what I did. I feel remorse about it, and now I don't act that way anymore. Yay, our friendship is fixed. That's not the way it works. And Martin, you just did a prime example of it. Like, you were squirreling away money for a very specific amends to this person, and $5,000 that's nothing to sneeze at. Like, that's a good amount of money, and like, I'm sure that hurt a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I'm sure there were times.
And I also have no intentions on being friends with him either. This is not a way to manipulate my way back into somebody's life. This is literally me just making amends.
Exactly, and I'm sure there's a lot of uses you could have for $5,000. I'm sure there's a new tattoo you would want, a new pair of shoes, like whatever. And like, I had to make a financial amends to my sister, and like, I had to do the same thing. I had to squirrel little bits of money away that I knew were that specific thing. And there were times when I was like, oh man, I'd really like this, and I could just, dip back into that sister fund, but I was like, that's not right. That's like, so I had to go with certain things because of that. And however a person is going to react to your amends is their right. Like, you got to understand, like, you hurt this, or I hurt this person. I have to understand that their feelings are valid. Whatever anger they have is valid. Whatever resentment they have is valid. And those feelings of guilt and shame and all those things I just touched on, like, I abused somebody. I hurt their feelings. They have a resentment now. Now I have guilt and shame about it. All of those are topics in our fourth step. So you have to be realistic about it, and don't think that it's necessarily going to go exactly the way you want it. But as long as you go into it with the best intentions of not hurting yourself or hurting the other person or manipulating the situation to go your way, then I think ultimately it'll be a very cathartic experience for everybody involved.
All right, so I guess I'm just going to talk about what I usually talk about when it comes to amends. I've only made direct amends, let me see, a handful of times, honestly. I'm not a big believer in direct amends because I don't really believe sorry means shit most of the time. I can't tell you how many times I said I'm sorry, and how few times I probably said I probably meant it, right, when we were using. So it lost a lot of, the actual meaning when I was doing it in active addiction. When it's like, oh, I'm sorry I fucked up again. Oh, I'm sorry I used again. Oh, I'm sorry I stole your money. Oh, I'm sorry I took your last cigarette. Like, oh, I'm sorry I went into your purse and took your pills. Like, I didn't mean to. I just needed one. So I'm sorry doesn't really mean anything, like, to a lot of people that I owed amends to. So I'm a very big believer in living amends. So I make sure that each day I am actively not repeating the actions that I did when I was in active addiction, and trying my best to become the person I'm supposed to be. To me, living amends is being the best version of myself to other people and not hurting them. And, if we need to, work a 10th step and identify what, the resentment was, and, go through and find our defect and, make the amends, like, sure. But hopefully I get to a point where I don't have to do that. So, I mean, to me, I think living amends is, at least for me, the way to go. Because, that's actively working step 9.
Yes. I actually want to touch on that a little bit, because I'm like looking at my wife and like thinking of something that's an area of contention that is, I'd say, a solid 90-10 on my side of the street. I have a pattern of she likes it when I say I'm sorry. She likes to hear the apology. And like, there's been times when I have said something or done something where I understand why she's upset, but I also don't feel a need to apologize. So I won't say I'm sorry, but I just won't say I'm sorry. But there'll be a discussion, and I'll explain how I won't exhibit that behavior in the future, and I won't repeat that. But in the moment when she's crying and upset because of what I have done, I'll be like, well, I did it and I meant it and I'm not sorry. Like, I feel guilty that it hurts your feelings, and I didn't mean to do that, but that's what happened. So now I know, and this is the result of it, and I don't want to repeat this, so I won't repeat this. But for the sake of what I did and what I said, I'm not sorry about it, because that's just what I did. So that's something I need to work on. But because sometimes, and it's always like small, innocuous stuff for the most part. Sometimes an apology is nice, and the other person does just want to hear it.
Yeah.
She gave me a thumbs up. So apparently I won. I'm gonna get a blowjob later.
All right.
What?
So moving on. I guess that's all the time we have today, on podcast.
That is all the time we have. She said not that I can't say that stuff on the podcast.
You can't. You cannot. No.
Are you gonna cut that?
No, I'll leave it. I think
you should.
I'll leave it.
Okay, good. Okay, I'll be more PC next time.
Yeah. We're not talking about sex right now,
It's one of the sections in the 4 steps, so that's
we're on 9 right now, sir. We're on 9.
What?
The topic was 9.
Well, if you just round off a 4, it'll look like a 9. So they're very similar numbers.
All right.
Well, that's about all the time we have. So we would like to graciously thank our guest Martin for joining us this evening.
Woo! Yeah!
Thank you, guys. If anybody wants to hear any more of my ramblings, you can go all the way back to episode 6 and check me out there too.
What fantastic! Just for that, you earned yourself a 3rd spot on Podcast Recovery. You just plugged our podcast
with your podcast.
It was a shameless plug of yourself. We love shameless plugs. All right. Here at Podcast Recovery, we are aiming to expand the scope of support for recovering addicts. Accessibility and convenience of helpful services is paramount to combating addiction. We work to bring the message of recovery to every addict, wherever and whenever it is needed. We believe that a powerful voice of recovery should be obtainable, practical, and at the touch of a button. Every addict deserves to hear a message of hope, and Podcast Recovery is here to provide it. All right, everybody, thanks for joining us. Go check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. For more information about us, go to podcastrecovery.com. But most importantly, everybody stay safe and stay clean.